Hi, and welcome to Missed It by How Much. This is the channel that tests sports hypotheses by using computer game engines. We're currently replaying the 1990 baseball season as the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are playing without Alfredo Griffin at shortstop, attempting to win the National League West. We've completed the fourth month of our season out of 6. So now we're looking at the National League East. And their teams, currently the Mets are in first place through 2/3 of the season. Taking a look at their starting position players, Greg Jefferies playing a little bit below average for what he did in the 1990 season. Looks to, based on his at-bats, quite far below his real number, which makes me think that perhaps the computer is replacing him in the starting lineup. Jefferies plays second base against left-handers, but Tim Teufel does at second base against right-handers. There you see a couple injuries they have. The guy who I thought was the key to the season way back at the beginning was Dave Magadan at first base. He's outperformed his numbers in the real season, hitting .357, leading the National League in batting average, especially versus right-handers, although he has hit a little bit for lefties versus lefties. That is Mike Marshall's job. Let's take a look at Marshall's statistics. Versus lefties, that's an impressive 880 OPS. So those two guys together make a formidable foe at first base. We said at the beginning of this project that we thought Davey Johnson would have kept his job as manager if he had played Magadan more often. That was part of the reason the Mets in the real 1990 season started off so slowly, got too far behind, and Johnson got fired. The other side of second base is Tim Teufel against right-handers. Doing very well also. Shortstop Kevin Elster, I would think, is the main man there. Yep, he's not performing up to his 1990 numbers thus far. Also, when you think of the Mets, you think of Hojo, Howard Johnson. Whether he played third base or short, he's a little low on those numbers, especially against left-handers. Looks like he's replaced versus lefties. And if I had been paying attention a little better, I think I would have caught that. Let's see, versus lefties. O'Malley is in versus lefties. Let's see how he's doing. Very well. So these mix and match platoon systems that the Mets are using has worked really well on offense. And you know their outfield. Let's start with McReynolds in left field. Right about where he should be. Power's still there. 71 RBIs, 2/3 of the way through the season, has a chance to, probably a pretty good chance to get to 100 RBI on the season. Hitting about where he's supposed to be and playing well in the field. In center field, Daryl Boston was a key pickup in the 1990 season once the White Sox sent him packing, and he played well, helping them come back. He's not playing as well. There you see his numbers. And defensively, that's kind of a surprise to me. Clean this up a little bit. See if there's anybody else. Keith Miller has had a lot of plate appearances. Hitting right about where he's supposed to. He plays all over the diamond, though. But he does start against left-handers. Surprisingly, let's see who starts against right-handers in center field. So Miller is the starter. I guess that's because Boston is hurt. But Darryl Strawberry in right field, outperforming his regular season numbers. Look at this power. 18 home runs and 232 at-bats against right-handers for an OPS of 1.011. Outside chance at an MVP, I would think Kevin Mitchell's in the lead there, though. Mackey Sasser, in terms of plate appearances, already surpassed his 1990 season, and he's proven that that was a good choice within a current 11-game hitting streak. Probably not very good against lefties, though. Let's see if that's against righties. Does he start against lefties? Todd Hundley does. So the computer does a good job choosing that, although that seems fairly recent because Hundley only has 5 plate appearances. So I don't know if he's hit a lot before that or not. Let's see if there's an injury. I'm assuming there's an injury. Mercado. That would be my guess. And he's not been that good against lefties either. Barry Lyons, few at-bats. Let's go to the pitchers, and they do have a formidable pitching staff led by Frank Viola, a lefty. Has an outside chance of a Cy Young Award. Started off really well and has had a tough August already and a tough July. The ERA is above where it should be. His record is 8-7, though. Next in the pecking order is David Cone. It's about where he is, a little below. Strong pitcher. Sid Fernandez. Nope, Dwight Gooden is next. Dwight's been better than he was in the 1990 season, a 4-game winning streak with a record of 8-4. Now we come to Sid, former Dodger farmhand. A little worse, depending on what statistic you measure as higher. A 9-3 record, though, is very impressive. Run support of 4.83 will help that. And the 5th starter is Ron Darling. He's a little worse, but riding a 5-game winning streak. The Mets have found themselves in first place. Most of the season it's been Pittsburgh. There you see the other pitchers in the bullpen. John Franco still far below where he should be. More than 2. He's doubled his ERA from the real season. Saves, he has 7 versus 33 in the regular season. He's blown 5 of them out of 12 opportunities. See, Machado has the most, is the current closer. I guess they're just deploying them versus matchups in the 9th inning. His ERA has been horrible as well. Mets a complete team, well put together. That's why they're in first. But not a huge lead. Pittsburgh right behind them, had a game and a half. Montreal only 3.5 behind this. Those 3 teams are probably going to play down to the wire. The Mets and the Pirates played down to the last week or so in the regular season. We'll see if Montreal can keep it up and continue that. Those 3 are the the cream of the NL East. I don't think the latter three teams, Philadelphia, Chicago, or St. Louis, are going to have an opportunity. Looking at the Pirates. Doesn't look like they have any major injuries right now, so we're going to take that off. Look at the pitching staff. Doug Drabek, definite Cy Young contender, probably the leader right now. Outpitching his real stats in ERA. Has a very good win-loss record. 79.2% quality starts. Whip of just over 1.083. Bob Walk has a no-hitter. Combined no-hitter. Pitched 7 innings of the 9-inning game. He's about where he's supposed to be. A little better with the average there. Fewer quality starts. Randy Tomlin. Not pitching as well, but starting more games. He's already far surpassed his regular season start. Neil Heaton, the other lefty in the rotation, not as well either. Only 6 quality starts in 19 out of 19. John Smiley, the third left-hander in this rotation, has a 7-game losing streak. With this team, that's really poor. And he's not even close to where he was in the real season. His ERA plus is a 73. He isn't even 41.7% of his starts are quality. The bullpen, Bob Kipper has hurt the Dodgers on different occasions. He's pitching really well. Look at those numbers. 168 average against. Bill Landrum has 11 saves for the team, although he's not pitching as well ERA-wise or whip-wise. 11 for 16 in save opportunities. He's the main stopper. There you see the other guys. Ted Powers come in and pitch. I mean, that's pretty excellent. 2.37 ERA in this year 35 season. That's outperforming his real stats. But this team turns on its hitting. Let's take a look at their starting lineup. Jose Lean at second has not been playing as well as his real stats. Wally Backman's a part-time player. R.J. Reynolds as well. Gary Redus only hits against lefties, and that's a terrible average. Lavalier is the starting catcher. There you see his numbers slightly better. Very good against left-handers. He's got the reverse splits. Jeff King, a name I remember, not performing up to where he should be. Only a 2.09 average. But he starts virtually every game at third. Sid Bream is the starting first baseman. Hitting better against lefties than I thought. I thought he was more of a platoon player. He's got the at-bats. I mean, he has 125 against lefties. He's probably not playing every single game, but quite a few. 97 out of around 108. That's pretty close to all of them. Maybe not facing as many lefties. Jay Bell, everyday starter at short. Outperforming his regular numbers, especially against lefties, doing very well. Here we go. These are the scary players when you're facing them. On offense, Barry Bonds playing better than his 90 statistics show, at least in terms of on base and OPS. He has 22 home runs, At that pace, he'll hit his 33 that he hit in the real season. And this is going to be scary. 22 runs saved in left field during the season. 2 home runs robbed. That's impressive. Bobby Bonilla, I believe he's tied for the lead league in RBI with 100. He should easily beat his 120 from the real season. 23 home runs. He should break 32. All around good numbers everywhere. And Andy Van Slyke, underrated, I think, in this outfield with those other 2 guys. Underperforming his numbers a little bit, but still very scary. And excellent in the outfield. Those 2 teams, the Mets, Pirates, should clash till the very end. It'll be impressive to see who pulls it out. The Montreal Expos, I think previously we said that they had players that were too old or too young, not in their primes. They're still playing very well. They're 10 games over 500, I believe. And they do have a chance. If one of these 2 teams goes on a losing streak, or both of them do, they do have the required firepower on offense and pitching-wise to win the division. They're only 3.5 back. Take a look at their numbers. Delino DeShields at second base, underperforming. I don't really care about steals. There's some good numbers in a short amount of action for Noboa. Aldretti, those are terrible numbers. Spike Owen, yeah, those could be better. Otis Nixon. I mean, some of these numbers are just terrible. Dave Martinez. I mean, I need an OPS higher than middle 6s, a little bit above that. Marquise Grissom. I mean, Mike Fitzgerald. That's very impressive, especially for a catcher. A 911 OPS. Been hitting really well. He's right about where he was in the real season for plate appearances, but he has 25 doubles to 18, 15 to 9 in home runs he leads, RBI 58 to 41, runs 53 to 36, so just playing really well. Andres Galarraga, those are not good numbers. Underperforming there. Tim Wallach, an all-star. Playing much better. One of the reasons why they're in third. Look at that slug, 516. Total of 18 home runs versus 21 in the real season. He played almost every single game, and he has played just about every single game of this replay. And you know how he is at fielding. Excellent. So I'm assuming based on looking at those numbers, the pitching staff has really helped. Dennis Martinez, no surprise there. El Presidente, right on his regular season numbers, looks like. Well done there. Oil Can Boyd, a little bit worse, but quality starts. That's what you're looking for. Nabholz, that is not good enough. Gardner, that seems pretty good. See how it is. A little bit worse than, again, depending on the statistic you look at. Kevin Gross. That's better than expected. Has a 500 record, although 6 quality starts out of 14 is not what you want to see. They've let a couple position players pitch, it looks like. Or they're available to pitch, let's just say that. Tim Burke is their closer. 10 out of 11 in save opportunities. ERA of 2.38. Whip of 1.059. That's very good. Don't know who Dave Schmidt is. But wow, those are impressive numbers. Three out of 4 in save opportunities. So, handicapping wise, I would think that Montreal is not in the same category as New York and or Pittsburgh. I think those two have to be the favorite, and they're a step behind. But 3.5 games can be made up in 54. It's not very difficult. We're around 108 games played for each team. We're around 54 games left. 2 more months is enough time to catch and pass 2 teams. Will be difficult, though. The other teams that we're going to talk about wish they had that opportunity. We'll start with Philadelphia, who's crash landed after a good start and was in first place for a stretch of time. They're led by Terry Mulholland, who really did throw a no-hitter in the 1990 season, but hasn't yet. And has been a little worse for the wear. Still has 10 wins and 7 losses. The rest of the pitching staff does not look good. Jose De Leon, Jason Grimsley, Pat Combs, Ken Howell, that's pretty good, the former Dodger pitcher. He's outperformed his real season numbers. He's on a 4-game winning streak. Some bad relief here from Marvin Freeman, Bruce Ruffin, Joe Bever, or Bever. Pitching a little bit better than expected. 2 for 6 in save opportunities, though. Roger McDowell with 17 saves, but that ERA is way too high. 17 for 23 in save opportunities. So not very good pitching there. But that was expected with the Phillies. The Phillies were scary because of their hitters. For a short stretch, Tom Herr led in RBI, and he surpassed his season stats by, in less than 178 plate appearances than he really did. He's already surpassed RBI. He's almost surpassed runs. His average is better. He's been playing really good second base for the Phillies. Charlie Hayes made the All-Star team. Still playing really well. The average is over 300. 10 home runs already with 1/3 of the season left. So you're seeing the hitting is there. They just had otherworldly hitting to start off the season from Lenny Dykstra. Here's Kruk, underperforming a little bit, but still great numbers. These numbers are kind of low. Von Hayes started out poor and just has not been able to play like the Von Hayes that I remember from the 80s. This was his age 32 season. Ricky Jordan has played well in limited action at first base. I guess he's the yang to the yin of John Kruk at first, hitting against lefties just out of sight. Darren Daulton, catcher, has slowed down a lot. He's now below his real season averages. He started out really well. And the same can be said of Lenny Dykstra. He really, this is no joke. You can go back and look at other videos on the channel. He was flirting with 400 near the All-Star break. And things have really slowed down. He's still above his real numbers, but It hasn't. Once he went into a slump and fell, the team seemed to as well. This is a team that I believe traded for Dale Murphy near the trade deadline. I think it was August 3rd of the season. They won't get that opportunity to save their season with Murph, but this is a team that went to the World Series in a few years, so we'll see what the future holds for that team. It won't be in 1990. The Cubs up next. They have been led by Andre Dawson the whole season. He was a potential MVP candidate early on. But first, let's talk about Ryan Sandberg. He's been excellent. He's a little bit lower than what he should be, but still great player. The question is, why has he only played 89 games? This is a computer question. At some point, they did not allow him to hit against lefties for a while, I'm guessing. And by looking at the stats, the person that I saw that they were playing in his place when we visited Chicago was Curtis Wilkerson. And when you see his stats, you'll say, why? And my question is, I don't know. I mean, my answer is, I don't know. I don't know why he was allowed to play in place of Rhino, even for a few games. I didn't see that he was injured in any way or tired in any way. These are bad numbers. Your starting third baseman is hitting an OPS of 617. That's not good. There's Dawson. He's been awesome. Awesome Andre Dawson. Look at those numbers. Much better than his real season. He's on the verge of breaking his home runs for that. He's probably going to have 100 RBI. I mean, those are just incredible. And still playing well in the outfield in his age 36 season is very impressive. Sean Dunston has been utter disappointment the whole season. Look at those numbers versus his real. I mean, even on defense, not much better than average. You think a 6 is a bad OPS, a 5 something is. Mark Grace up near the top of the batting averages in the NL, overplaying his real numbers. Not enough though. As a team, just not enough offense. Then we turn to pitching up and down. I mean, Sean Bosky pitched against the Dodgers early in the season, was great, outstanding, but then fell on tough times. And look at this offense. These ERAs. Let's talk about the good ones. Greg Maddux, future Hall of Famer. There you see how many Cy Youngs in a row. That's 4 that I count. Just overperforming. No surprise there. Also, Steve Wilson, pitching well. Really outperforming. Only started 10 games, though. And then let's see beyond that. Jose Nunez, that's not bad. 3.66 ERA, a lot better. Unfortunately, only 46 and 2/3 innings. When you have somebody else that's with a 6.40 ERA and 45 innings, then you say, hey, what's going on here? Rick Sutcliffe, very good in limited outings. Let's see how many games he started. 3. His durability is a 1. I'm assuming he got injured in this season. That's why they're not playing him as much, but he's been much better than a lot of the starters in the rotation. You look at Les Lancaster, Paul Ossenmacher. These are terrible ERAs. Mitch Williams is okay, but he's pitched the fewest innings of those 3, and he has the best ERA. Cubs, 15.5 games out. not likely to come back. Would be quite a story just to get back to 500 by the end of the season, if that's possible. Last up is the St. Louis Cardinals, who've been in last place since almost the starters line of the season. They just never got off to. They were behind right away, and things have not gotten any better for them. They do have a shining star in the pitching staff, all-star John Tudor, who's stayed up around the top in ERA the entire season, outperforming his real numbers as whips below 1. Actually has a winning record on this team. That's all you need to know. Look at these quality starts, 21 out of 22. A pitcher anybody, any team would want to trade for, but no trades. Comparatively, he's pitched fewer innings than McGrain or Tewksbury, and they have 4 ERAs. They've won a total of 7 games. He's won 9. They've lost a total of 22 games. He's lost 8. Brent Smith, not much better. Jose De Leon, a lot worse. These are the guys who are starting the games. Ken Hill with a 9 ERA. I mean, where's the relief? Look at all these guys. Lee Smith, somebody the Red Sox wish they had, has pitched really well. Although in save opportunities, only 1 for 4. But those are good numbers. Not as good as in the real season. But on this team, that's impressive. 47 strikeouts and 41 in a third innings. Something a team could use like the Red Sox to perhaps help them. But that trade with Brunansky happened at the beginning of the season and cannot be reversed. Ken Daly has pitched pretty well as a lefty, beating his real season stats. One of the few bright spots for the Cardinals pitching staff. In terms of batters, we're not going to go through this with a fine-tooth comb because it just hurts. These numbers are just terrible. I mean, Thompson plays mostly against righties. I don't think he plays that much against lefties. When I hit it correctly, I'll show you what I mean. He only has 68 at-bats against lefties, 183 against righties. And he's a pretty good hitter against righties. He's horrible against left-handers. Vince Coleman is a name that you know who's playing a little bit worse than what he really did. But he has nothing to feel shame about, hang his head at all. Tom Pagnozzi for a catcher, okay. Pedro Guerrero against righties, okay. Against lefties, no. His numbers are a little bit below. But on this team, he's expected to do a lot, and he's not doing it. Pendleton's nearing the end, it looks like, although he did rebound with the Braves. This season has been better than what he really did, but not great. Willie McGee ended up being the National League batting champion only because he was able to get traded to the Oakland A's and froze his stats near the trade deadline. He won't get that opportunity to save himself. He's played in fewer games than the pace that he was at in the real season. His numbers are right about where they were, a little bit lower on the OPS side, but not enough to save this team. Todd Zeile deserves more at-bats. I'm assuming he's in some sort of platoon, but he is pretty good against both sides. For a catcher, that's impressive. Was he really a catcher? This season he was. So that's the the National League East. Unfortunately for those bottom three teams, that's pretty much they're finished. Just a little note while this game repopulates itself and we say goodbye. I was just thinking about how people online complain, some baseball fans, that when you have divisions like this where there's only one winner, you have to win the division to make the playoffs. It's unfair to all these other teams who don't have a chance. And that the current format with all the wild cards and all the teams that make it, it's better because more teams are alive longer in a potential opportunity to play in the playoffs. And I will just say this. There are some teams that play now and have zero chance of winning a playoff spot, you want to call it a division or a wild card, at the beginning of the season. You could say before the beginning of the season, because they don't have the money to compete, or they choose to just use a younger roster. Look at the divisions that we're playing with right now. There are 2 months left. There's around 54 games left. So I would say it's pennant time. There's a pennant race right now. Look how many teams are alive. I mean, if you don't want to count Seattle, that's fine. Kansas City obviously could make it. Oakland, Minnesota, any of those three teams could make it. Boston, Baltimore, Cleveland, Detroit, Toronto. You don't want to include Milwaukee at 7 games back? That's fine. That's 5 teams out of this division that could win the division and make the playoffs. In this division, there are 3 that can for sure make it. I would say Cincinnati's probably too far gone to make it in the West, but there's 3 teams there. What I'm saying is, just because there's only one winner, it doesn't make it unfair to the other teams. And the fact that we do not do trades and what your roster is locked in on day one is your roster the whole season, and you're not selling off parts, it's competitive. That means Atlanta, who's 20 games under 500, will still have an opportunity to knock off the Dodgers or the Mets or Pittsburgh or whoever, and they have something to play for. They don't have a division to play for, but they're going to be competitive. Versus these other teams nowadays, where they get to a point where you're near the trade deadline and they just sell off all their parts. We're not going to pay this guy. He's really good, but we're not going to keep him on our team. You get him, good team. And that weakens their team, which makes it harder when teams do play these teams that have just sold off all their parts. They're not competitive anymore. And that's not fair because whoever has them the most on their schedule towards the end of the season, those are for sure wins. Anyhow, I don't think that just because only one team makes it from each division, it's unfair to the other teams. Play your best ball, play your best players, try to win. Don't sell off your parts for potential players in the future that are going to go in the minor leagues and maybe stay there forever. That doesn't happen here. So hopefully you agree with me there and you want to see teams that are competitive throughout the season, even if their season is not going to result in a playoff spot, they're still going to play their hardest to try to win. Rant over, offset. Soapbox. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Misted by How Much.